bottom of the page.
Okay, okay. Perhaps that's the problem.
Yeah,
I will mention.
I did point that out on Nextdoor, but people don't seem to have. I mean, loads of people have filled it in, but
yes.
You know,
Carrie Townsend Jones says, scroll down to your bottoms to answer.
Scroll down to your bottom, yes. Tell them to otherwise to go take it straight, go to the website and do it directly from the website.
Okay, okay, I will pass that on. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.
Hello, Puss.
Carrie, I was going to tell you, we've had a surge in people completing that. We got 206 people have completed it. No, 208. It's got up to.
Oh, see, even one.
Pilots are important.
As you speak. Yes, I thought because we agreed, didn't we, that we would try and give it another boost. So I thought if I'll put it out and.
Yeah, and that doesn't include all the people who haven't scrolled to the bottom.
And indeed, all those people who hopefully will now be able to access it.
Let's reach their bottom. Yes, that's good. That's good.
As long as it's not crinkly.
Oh, that's a rave from the grave.
It certainly is, isn't it?
Showing your age now. Wow, my age.
At my age, yeah. Oh dear.
Just 5 past.
Yeah, okay, I'm just going to get going, Sonny. I'm having a few technical issues here myself, as you know. Okay, can we make a start then? Because
for recording, can you just do your say something?
Speak to one business,
and then
wait
a second. Yeah.
So if we go 5, 4, 3, there we go. Okay. Well, welcome everybody to this meeting, the full council meeting, Mumbles Community Council, 13th of April 2021. Thank you for giving up your time this evening. Please have a little bit of patience with me this evening as I'm having a little technical difficulty with my noise, with my sound, but I'm on 2 devices, so I'm working my way through that. But I might have difficulty in accessing certain documents. Pam, did you want to say something?
I'm late to the meeting. I don't know if Sarah has Rebecca Ferguson has contacted you. She's stuck in Cardiff because she couldn't charge her car and she's on her way back as fast as she can. Okay. So she might be into the meeting because she's still trying to get back from Cardiff. Sorry, okay. I didn't know if you knew. Sorry, Chair.
Okay, well, we'll move on to that with apologies for absence. Steve, have you got any apologies for absence?
Yeah, we've had apologies from Tim Bull, Pip Reason and Linda Tyler-Lloyd. And Rebecca is on her way back from Cardiff and hopefully joining us shortly.
Okay, thank you for that. So if we go on to the minutes of the monthly meeting held on the 9th of March.
You missed declarations of interest, Martin.
Oh, sorry, declarations of interest. As I said, I'm trying to juggle a couple of things here. Declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest, anybody?
I don't think so.
Okay, if that's not the case, if we move on to the next point then. Minutes of the monthly meeting held on the 9th of March 2021. Any points, or are we happy to accept those as a correct record of events?
Happy.
Okay, so if we accept those, are you happy with that, Steve?
Yeah, thanks, Chair.
Clerk's report.
Yeah, there's a couple of things on my report today. I'll just do a verbal report. Firstly, just to say we've had a number of positive responses to things that we've been doing, particularly to the newsletter. And I know the chair's received several of them, so I will circulate those all to you. Good news on finally getting replacements for our 2 casual vacancies. The elections have been called for both the Oystermouth vacancy and for the Mayor's vacancy, and elections are held on the same time as the Welsh Government elections early in May. The other thing I need to tell you is we've finally got the quotes sorted out for all the iPads and laptops, and Paul's decided which is best. So order's been placed. So hopefully once they're configured, you'll be getting those shortly. I'll make sure that Sarah's top because she's...
Oh, thank you.
So at long last, hopefully those will be coming through to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, that's everything I have, Chair, unless there are any questions.
No, nothing. I got no particular questions on that. Any questions from any other councillors in relation to that?
No.
Just a quick one on the reports actually. I don't know who's.
Some do echoing.
Yeah. Can someone turn off the? There we are. Better.
It's me.
Just wondering how.
Can't hear you at all now, Will. Can't hear you.
Sorry, I was on mute actually.
Oh, that's...
Yeah. I was just wondering how the decision for the iPads or laptops was made, and if we. I mentioned at the last time that my business, we bought some refurbished iPads which did the job absolutely fine, and they're a lot cheaper. Just wondering if you looked into that, or if it was new ones, or maybe they were under warranty and that's why you did, or just a bit more information about that really. It's a lot of money, obviously. Yeah,
your suggestive refurbishment items were discussed. And I think although we could have got them cheaper, we felt that that may be storing up trouble sort of not too far down the road. And it's been very frustrating for those councillors who've not been able to, they might not have the equipment, they've not been able to access their OneDrive and so on. So it's felt that it was important that we get something that's new and we can keep it properly maintained and so on. So we did discuss it, but our decision was to go for new to, out of what they say nowadays is an abundance of caution.
Okay.
Thanks, Chair.
I think you're muted now, Martin.
Martin, you're on mute.
I'm unmuted now?
Yeah, that's fine.
I don't know how I've ended up muted. But anyway, as I said, sorry about this. Right, if I move on to the Chair's report, it's in the documents, but I will read it as is my custom. During March, MCC have taken part in some high-profile public engagement activities. On the 11th of the month, we hosted the leader of Swansea Council, Rob Stewart, who hosted a talk on future plans for Mumbles, and then took a question and answer session with members of the public. I'm happy to Rob on that to help him organise that. I will be perfectly honest in admitting that I faced the run-up to the session with a little trepidation, as I really didn't want it to result in a public verbal bloodbath of accusations and arguments. However, I think we can all agree that the session went very well, and it was fantastic to see such a high level of engagement and positive discussion from other councillors and from the public. Rob contacted me after the session and told me how much he'd enjoyed it and offered to take part in a follow-up session at some point at some later date. I would like to think that we have developed an approach to public engagement here that we could repeat in the future with not only Rob but others as well, as I feel the success of this session concretely illustrates that there's very much an appetite for this among our public. Another great success we have seen this month has been the production and distribution, as Steve alluded to, of our latest newsletter. Claire has done a fantastic job in bringing together and seeing it through to fruition. and I am pleased to report that we have had a lot of positive feedback in relation to this newsletter, not just in relation to the content, which people have reported they have found very informative, but also into the production values, which helps us to convey the professional values and identity of MCC as an organisation. I would like to think that this gives us a template moving forward, for while it is important that we approach our various projects in a competent manner, it is also vitally important that we portray and maintain a professional approach to communication with our community in order to project a professional corporate image. On tonight's agenda is a proposal for us as an organisation to adopt a social media policy. The aim of this proposal is for us to put into operation a coordinated approach to maintaining our social media presence. I would not like to think that any policy such as this will be cast in stone, as it will need to evolve as social media continues to evolve, and also as our corporate use of the medium evolves as well. But at the same time, particularly in this day and age, our social media presence is one of the main facets of our overall public image, and we therefore need to adopt a professional approach to its management as we get to the production of our newsletter. So that is my report, and as I sort of said, that is available in additional documents. So if we move on to point 6, financial report. Oh, sorry, Ian, did you want to say something?
Yeah, with regard to the meeting with Rob Stewart, he was talking about his cash fund. Have we any further details of the application to access the small business fund?
Steve, have we got any information on that, or maybe Paul?
So I know Claire actually contacted Rob, and I think he's referred her email to one of his colleagues, so she's hoping to hear shortly.
Okay.
Okay, well, we can chase that up, Ian, and make
sure
that we...
thank you.
That thing.
Thank you.
Any other questions, statements, observations? If not, then if we can move on to the financial report.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Usual financial report this month. You've got a list of all the payments which have been made electronically, so they're there for retrospective approval. There's the invoices which have been paid and also the Barclaycard purchases. All the invoices have been saved to the OneDrive folder, so you can have a look at them if you need any more information, and can contact me as well. Income, we've had one amount in this month, which is £3,500 from the Austrian Community Association. That's their rent for the period September 2020 to March 2021. Bank balances as at 7th of April, just under 700,000. And I've also got the budget monitoring schedule up until the end of February, which shows how much each committee has spent. Overall, the actual expenditure at the end of February was 31.6% of the total budget, which does seem quite low, but obviously it is low because there are things included in our budget which are significant amounts, which we're still waiting to get underway, like Underhill, like Skateboard Park. So there's no real concerns over that, because those amounts can be carried forward to next year's budget, and I'm sure they will be spent. The spending will start next year. That's the financial report very quickly. So if anybody's got any questions.
Any questions for Paul? Sarah?
I'm unmuted. Yeah, are we still paying rent to Austrian now? And if so, how much?
Yeah, we're paying £800 a month.
So they're paying us 3,000 and we're paying them 800.
They're paying us £7,000 a year.
Right.
We are paying them £800 a month, which is 9,600 a year. And I know that is subject to discussions ongoing between MCC and OCA.
Can I just say that does sound weird, Paul, still. It does sound strange.
Yeah, I can't argue with that.
Well,
just jump in. We've been over this in the last meeting, and we have met the Austrian since. I don't know if Steve would be the best place to update.
There has been some update on this, but Steve, do you want to?
Muted, Steve.
Thanks, Gareth. sorry, since we're discussing Ostream as part of a confidential premises report, can I suggest we discuss it during that?
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Steve, to be honest. So if we move that discussion back to them, because I know that there has been some movement and some discussion on that.
Okay, apologies.
Okay, any other points in relation to that? No? So if we move on to point 7, as I laid out in my chair's report, this refers to the social media policy that you've had for some time now. The original thing I think I drafted in November 2020, and it's been around since at least the past 2 months. So are there any points, any issues anybody wants to raise or questions in relation to that? Pam?
Just to inform you that I spent the last hour and a half trying to find it anywhere on OneDrive and nothing was there. It kept telling me folders were empty. So I haven't been able to read up on anything for this evening's meeting, and I haven't been able to read up on that. So I will be abstaining because I won't have the faintest idea what you're talking about. Sorry.
Sarah?
Same again, it's because I don't have access to it at all. So I don't know if it's on it or not. Sorry, I'd have to abstain too.
Carrie?
You're on mute. Mute.
You're on mute, Carrie.
You're on mute.
You got it.
There seems to be elements of it that slightly confuse councillors' personal emails or own Facebook pages or whatever with the community council's ones, and it's quite difficult in some elements to actually work out quite which bit is related to which. So you know, I think we need to just try and make it, you know, clarify exactly what. I think maybe it needs to be 2 quite separate documents, or part 1 and part 2 of the same document, because at the moment it kind of wanders between the 2, and as I say, it's quite difficult to actually relate some of the things as to whether it's referring to the MCC social media or councillor social media. So maybe it might be worth, you know, taking it back and looking at MCC social media policy, individual councillors social media policy, and be absolutely clear which is which and what relates to which.
Okay, any other points before I respond to that? Okay, in response to that, I think I've made it quite clear, to be honest, that this very much relates to posts that come out from MCC and via MCC channels. Now, when it comes to individual councillors posting, I think I've discussed this before when we've discussed this topic. I really don't think that we're in a position to be policing individual councillors' postings, but at the same time, the criteria that refer to the behaviour of councillors, particularly when it comes into bringing the council into disrepute, will apply to councillors' postings on social media just as much as they would to their behaviour, say, if they were talking in the street. So that is something completely different. This is specifically about Mumbles Community Council. It only refers to postings that come from Mumbles Community Council and have the Mumbles Community Council branding on them. As I sort of said, the other issues when it comes to individual councillors posting, I think that we will tie ourselves in a knot trying to issue guidelines in relation to that, because we can't cover every criteria. But when it comes to individual councillors posting, they will be governed by acceptable behaviour for councils just in general, just as if they were talking in the street. So that would be my response to that.
Okay, just to follow on from that, then perhaps you can clarify under responsibilities and accountabilities.
Yeah.
it says, however, it is understood that there will be times when individual councillors and officers may be communicating on social media. What social media are we talking about?
Any social media, all social media.
So that is in reference then to councillors' own social media, not to MCC social media.
No. Exactly. Because there will be times when councillors communicate via social media, and you know, we have it particularly in relation to an area like Mumbles, is somebody can be posting on their own particular social media, and people in the community will know that those people are councillors. They're not posting in an official capacity, but people will know that they are councillors. So if they post anything in their individual capacity, which has the potential to bring the council into disrepute, then they will be covered under the general general guidelines to councillors.
Do you mean the code of conduct?
Yes, the code of conduct. Okay. Okay. So if I could, if there are no further questions, could I put this to the vote? All those in favour of adopting this policy? One, two, three, four, five, six. All those against? All those to abstain? That policy is passed. Then thank you very much for that. Right, so if we move on to point 8, recommendations by the Culture and Tourism Wellbeing Committee. Videography recommended that the following videos be commissioned with the cost being met from budget CL17 Digital Archive. Underhill, capture what is there now before the developments, 2 surfing at Langland, and 3 Margaret Thrush. Rob, did you want to speak to this? You're on mute.
Yeah, basically it's what it says on the tin, you know, to do 3 more films and have approval to do them. And those are the subjects we've chosen.
Okay, any questions, Carrie?
Yeah, just there doesn't actually seem to be a cost attached.
It's out of the, we've got £8,000 this year with the Digital Archive Committee to do stuff. So it's going to come out of that.
Right, so there's no specific cost for these videos. They will just be whatever someone quotes.
Well, we've got videographers working with us at the moment, Carrie. So,
yeah,
you know, they're producing films and we've given them budgets. So, you know.
That's what I wanted to clarify. They have a clear budget. They know how much they've got to spend on these videos.
They will know, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Will, did you want to come in?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think, as Rob said, you know, there'll obviously be a set price that they'll work to. We are waiting to have all 3 videos back, at which point the committee will then make a decision whether we want to just go ahead in the future with potentially looking at one, not necessarily one of those, but one videographer as a contractor or multiple, and that's something that will come out a little bit further down the line. But the cost, I would assume, Paul, is the figure that we are working towards, that we put the tender out on last time, isn't it? So it might be worth adding it in, as Carrie says, you know, it might be worth adding it into this motion of no more, for example, than £1,500 per video into this, because I think that was the highest amount, was it, that we had done in the last tendering process?
Yeah, that was the amounts that were that it was based on last time, but it was I think it was £1,000 for a location video and 500 for an interview. Yeah, but that'll be the maximum.
Yeah, okay, so it's a good point though, actually, just thinking about it, because there's obviously the 3 locations that we're talking about here, but we're not talking about the interviews, because I think they're not in this. So so should we say no more than what, £1,000 again, or is that too little?
I don't think we can say that, Will, because there may be no interview involved, but these films are likely to be longer than the other films because we've given 10 minutes to those. And as we've both said in meetings, you know, you could do a whole documentary of an hour on Margaret and surfing, I don't think we can put a cap on it at the moment. It depends how long we're going to ask these films to be.
Okay, but what we're doing here though is we're passing the ability to do these videos through council. But Paul, you'll have to advise us here. Are we able to then put when we go to the price of the stage where we're actually paying let me start again. When we come to the stage where we know how much that video is going to cost to produce, do we have to bring that back to council, or are we in a point here where we should think about that now?
Well, one of the issues that'll come up later under the environment policy is that any decision made by a committee or a council should have a cost attached to it, and it should have the actual budget that it's going to come from. So I would say that at this stage, unless an amount can be agreed at this stage, then it would need to come back.
Okay, so we've got the budget, as Rob said earlier. We've got the place where this is coming from. We have got funds for this.
Yeah.
So at this stage, excuse me, my daughter's just...
Tell her off in silence.
Sure, can I come in?
Oh, Will, while Will's having a chat with his daughter, Paul, is it? Sorry.
Steve, I'm having terrible trouble. The sound is just breaking up all the time. Is that me, or is everybody else experiencing the same thing, or is it my computer?
I think it's your computer, Pam.
Okay, I'll go and change the iPad.
Right, Steve, what were you coming in with then? Sorry, and then Sarah, sorry.
Yeah, no, I just wondered whether Paul thought it would be reasonable if it was passed. Obviously, it's saying where the budget's coming from, CL 17 due to lockout, whether council could agree a figure up to at this point, and therefore...
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say,
yeah.
Yeah, I think up to would be fine.
Sarah?
Yeah, basically, we really need to have some sort of cap. Otherwise, it looks like overindulgence from us. So a sensible cap would be wise. We can always come back to it if it becomes something bigger.
Carrie?
Yeah, I was just going to ask how much has already been spent, because I know at least one, if not two videos have already been done. So how much of that 8,000 is still remaining?
That's out of last year's budget.
Right, okay. So this is at 8,000, a new 8,000 for this year?
Yeah.
Yeah, out of last year's budget, I think six videos at a total cost of £1,500 per videographer. So that was 4,500. So there's still some money left out of last year's budget. Plus, there's also the new amount of 8,000 in the current year's budget, or the new year's budget. And
where do we find these videos?
They haven't all been finished yet, and then the other one, Steve, I believe, has downloaded the other one. It's going to circulate it the first one and circulate it to the committee first, just to for the volunteers, not the councillors, the members of the Digital Archive Committee. They'll then just check it's historically accurate and circulate it to the council before it gets put on our YouTube channel then. But they're not all finished, because obviously with the pandemic there was a struggle to interview with people, and people didn't want to be interviewed. So it was a bit of a we gave everyone a extension on the tender.
Okay, yeah, just it'd be nice to see them. I didn't realise even there were 6. I only knew of 2. So it'd be great to get them out there.
It's 2 videos per applicant. So there's an interview plus a feature on a particular point of interest of Mumbles. So it's 3 applicants doing 2 videos each.
Okay.
Thank you for that, Rob. Sarah?
Yeah, when we do the Underhill one, can we make sure that the history of the Community Council helping Underhill financially and being supported is actually in it? I'm a little concerned that we don't get completely wiped out of it and end up paying for it as well.
Yeah, it's more to do with the the deep history. I'm sure we can mention it somewhere, but it's more to do with the American servicemen building Underhill and the building still being up and the history of the rugby and the football. But I'm sure it can be mentioned. That's not a problem.
I think it should be. I don't think we'd be anywhere without the community council. I don't think Underhill would have managed.
Okay, thank you for that, Sarah. Richard?
I've correct Will on something. It's Canadians. I don't think they'll be too happy.
I thought it was Canadian. I thought it was Canadian, but I got told by John Powell the other day that it was American.
I was in the with him and he was pulled up with it. Like.
Yeah.
I do apologise.
Well, no, I had to do exactly the same thing the other day, Richard. So I know how you feel. I trust John Powell over us.
So and that's exactly the point I think Will is on about, that we've got to make sure about the historical accuracy, because I did notice that on some of the other ones as well. But anyway, that's another thing. Here's Rebecca coming in now, looking a little stressed.
Hello.
Skip your nose, Pam.
Hello.
Looking a little stressed, Rebecca.
I look stressed. I've had a car charging, baby crying hell of an afternoon, but I'm here now. Sorry for being late.
Well, do your breathing exercise. Well, thanks for joining us, Rebecca. Okay, then. So, are we happy then to proceed with the recommendation, Chair, on the understanding that we follow a robust procurement procedure as guided by Paul there?
I think Steve just said that we wanted to put in a number up to.
Yeah.
So, for example, no more than £2,000 per video, for example.
Okay.
It gives just to get Rob's input on this very quickly. Rob, it gives us that little bit of buffer if we did want to do something longer, yeah?
Yeah, it gives us a bit more of a buffer. I mean, it again depends on how long we want these films to be. If they're going to be an hour long, then so far we've asked for 15 minutes for 1,500. So we're not going to get an hour for 2,000 in that sense.
Okay, so I mean, we could say that it's no more than 3,000, but obviously the budget would allow that.
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
So it's what we want to put as an upper cap, really. What about 2,500?
I'm happy with that because at the end of the day, we're not going to produce. We're going to produce the amount of videos that our budget will allow. So yeah. So that's fine with me.
Okay, Sarah. Let's see if we can move on though.
Sorry, just to say, could we, when we do get the films done, will we have the logo of the community council on it to show that we paid for it and it was our... That's good.
It's already been done, yeah.
Yeah, we've already done that with all the strap lines and everything. Okay then, so are we going to put a figure... Pam?
Have they given you a price per 15 minutes per video? Have they given you a budget for all of this, which you really should have?
No, we gave them a budget to produce a 10-minute film and a 5-minute interview of 1,500.
But what did they tell you at the beginning was their average price per half an hour of video with this? It seems to be back to front. We don't have any budget, and you don't have an edit time.
Well, I mean, the edit times differ depending on what you're filming for a start off. I mean, if you're using drone footage, it takes a lot longer to edit.
I mean the product edited time. Is it going to be a half an hour or whatever?
Well, we don't know at the moment. And, look, as I'm saying, editing things differs. The amount of time needed to edit something differs on
you're
what
sticking to a film editor. This is back to front. You should have a time, you should have a budget per minute, whatever it comes down to. I'm not against the project, but it just doesn't seem that they've set you up very well on this.
Well, look, if we were doing it properly in that way, I'm sure there's union rates that we'd have to follow and equity and all that sort of stuff. And you'd have to be paying people right for presenting on it as well as making the film or whatever, I mean, and then you're going into stupid ground, aren't you?
You're going professional ground, yes.
Hold on, Sarah, can I just bring you in then, and then we'll see if we can bring this to some sort of conclusion.
It's probably too late in the day now because it seems like Rob's made the arrangements. But could we
No,
just?
I haven't made the arrangements.
Oh, okay.
The tender has not.
Go for.
The tender has not gone out.
One at a time, please. Sarah first.
Can I say something? Just to say that perhaps it'd be better at a future date to go for passionate people within the community who really are interested in this project. It might lose a little of the professional glitz, but it will actually repay us in passion and being about the community, and it will save us a lot of money.
Okay,
we have, sorry Martin, yeah, it's very frustrating this. We have prioritized with local videographers, and we haven't put the tender out, Pam. So, you know, the tender will go out adjusted to the price we just said. So we'll be able to build into the tender what we want and say, this is how much, you know, we can, we ask for what we want, and then people fit their bid on the tender. So we put exactly what we want out there in the tender, and then they give us a quote based on that.
Okay then, so are we in agreement then for the amount that we're going to say for these videos? Have we got a figure?
I was happy with Rob's 2,500, no more than 2,500 per video. Obviously, we'll seek better value and try to get them as cheap as possible, but no more than that.
I think if we use that as a guideline, Rob, would you be happy with that?
Yeah. That's perfect because, as you say, it's a guideline, and we'll try and get them cheaper.
Yeah, that's what I'm sort of saying. So that's the cap of 2,500. So
that would also stay within the budget available. So I think that's a good amount.
Okay, so there we go then. So we'll set it at 2,500. That will be the cap, and we will work with the budget that we've got. So can we move on then? So if we move on to 8B, recommended that a formal draft contract be produced to our solicitors, including any necessary release documents from any interviewees, participants. Any particular points to raise on that, Rob?
No, I'll hand this over to Will because you know, he's been in charge of the tenders for this project and dealing with the videographer, so I'll hand it over to him.
What's that? So are we okay to agree that? Anybody, Carrie?
Yeah, I think it goes back to the same question as before. You know, do we have a price for this? And is that price also being taken out of the 8,000? One assumes so. You know, because that obviously will impact on how much is available for the videos.
Well, surely
so, you know, we should have a quote, surely, for how much this is going to cost to involve solicitors.
Chair, can I just illuminate that point? I have asked our solicitor for a quote. Unfortunately, he's been away on a long Easter break, so I haven't been able to bring that to you, I'm afraid.
But well, go on, Will. Go on.
Yeah. What the idea of this is that it's a long-term project. Obviously, we've commissioned 3 videos. One of the lighthouse, help me out here. One of the castle and one of the pier. Yeah. And then some interviews. Now, the idea is that they're deep history dives, you know, into so they're not just a quick video. It's in depth about certain things. So, for example, we could do some in West Cross, we could do some in Langland, we could do some in Mumbles, we could do some in Males, Klein Gardens. The list is endless of what we want to do with topics. There's also videos, as Sarah said, of interviewing people and people of note and having interviews with local people. Now, what we want to do is make this a long-term project and put this out to tender and conduct the tender properly so that we have editing time, as Pam mentioned earlier. You know, we have editing time, we have all those nuances of videography, all the things we need. For example, what's it called when you have ownership over a video? Copyright. You know, copyright. All those things nailed down in a document. And if we change videographer, or if we put out the same tender, that it's all, you know, there in black and white and it's all quite clear. Because if it's a long-term project, it needs to be done right, basically. So that was the motivation behind trying to get a solicitor to do it.
I think you need some professional advice on this because it's just sounding very whimsical at the moment.
What do you mean, like a solicitor? That's a really good
No,
idea.
I don't mean like somebody saying, how do you set up a video? And what do you want in it? What's your focus? What's your agenda? Oh, it just seems very whimsical at the moment. And I think it needs a lot more substance to it.
Of course, and that's exactly what we'll do when we got the solicitor, and we'll get some advice on how we best conduct that, what we need to ask for, of course.
No,
okay.
I don't. Oh, sorry, okay.
Okay, Sarah.
Right, I agree with Will, need a solicitor, but I think we should leave it for the month until we can get hold of the solicitor and find out more. And then we'll have clarification before we take any other steps. But yeah, we do need a solicitor.
Danny?
Yeah, Sarah's basically said it, you know, I don't think we can, you know, as Paul said previously with regard to the environment policy, we can't agree an unknown sum of money. So this should obviously be deferred until we have confirmation from the solicitor of how much it will be and exactly what's involved, so that we can be confident that, you know, it's not going to be, sorry, you didn't tell me that you wanted that as well. That's another £500. I think we need to have it very clear and a very clear cost.
Okay then, so shall we say that in principle, we've got the budget for the digital archive videos and we've set the guidelines for the videos there, and the idea is that the whole project will be done within the overall budget. The contract will, you know, obviously we're going to need this contract because exactly the point that Will made there in relation to copyright. We can't just carry on without copyright, particularly when you're doing archival and using photographs or what have you. Can be a bit of a minefield with copyright. So if we say that in principle, yes, okay, we're going to go with this, but before we actually confirm anything, we want to have a figure, and that's got to come in obviously within the budget. Paul, did you want to come in?
Yeah, what I was going to say was there will be budget and underspend in the current year, last year's budget. So I think if it comes to more than 500, which is now available from the new year's budget, then there will still be something left over from the old year, which could be used to fund it. But I'm very keen moving forward that every decision that's made has got a budget and has got an amount. So yeah, I've got to say yes, defer it to next month.
Okay then. So
you don't seem to have a format or a plan to these videos.
Surely that would come in the bidding process.
Yeah.
No. Before that, you go in with a format and a plan. If you want these videos to be judged once against the other, then you need to have a format so they can be judged one against the other, not just sort of far-flung things where you can't recognise certain elements. I'm quite willing to come in and work with the group. I'd love to do that. If you want to, I'll do that. It's just so it's a bit flimsy at the moment. Anyway. I think you need more help.
Okay, well, we'll refer that back to the Cultural and Tourism Committee on that. But I think, you know, we've come to a decision there about the guidelines of how much we want to pay for the videos. We obviously want to have a formal draft contract which covers copyright and all the releases that we need for interviewees and participants. So we will go ahead with the idea of that, but we won't make a final decision of that until we get the figure for next month. Is that okay? Can we agree on that?
Yeah.
Okay, everybody agreed on that? So, okay, then if we move on to 8C, which is the NHS Social Care and Frontline Workers Day. You can see it on the thing. The committee are keen to support this day. There have been a number of ideas put forward. Obviously, we've got to take into account social distancing and the other restrictions that might be in place when it comes to doing any sort of parade. But the idea has been put forward to put a commemorative stone down at Southend Gardens, where we have a lot of the other community memorials in relation to the war and the lifeboat disaster and issues like that. So what is recommended is that the commemorative memorial stone with a suitable inscription be placed at Southend Gardens, which we haven't got a cost on to this, to be met from any event underspend in the cultural and tourism budget. Have we got any guidelines yet, as Paul, as to how much we're talking about for this stone?
Not as yet, I think, but and I think things have moved on slightly since that recommendation was made at Cultural. So I don't know whether Rob wants to elaborate on that.
We need to amend it, wouldn't we, Paul? Because what we've been told is that we won't get a stone in time for this year's event. You know, we'd be very hard pushed to get it. So we were thinking of doing that for next year, like the year anniversary of NHS Day, but commemorating this year anyway, with maybe a band, a brass band, like brass quintet, brass group would be better way of putting it, and having something done at Ostream or outside Ostream just to commemorate the day, because obviously with social distancing, we can't do a free-for-all at the moment, and if we can't lay the stone down there, we want to commemorate it this year, but next year would be the big sort of commemoration when we've got everything in place. Is that right, Paul?
So yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think there was it was raised potentially that something could be put at the Ostream
yes,
as a sort of memorial plaque, and then that could then be incorporated into the building if there are any changes to the building. I think the important thing is that the NHS Day is like an annual day going forward. So it could be something which is linked to that, to sort of recognise that day and to recognise the work of frontline workers, NHS care workers during COVID, and obviously to all those who've lost their lives as a result of COVID.
Carrie?
Yeah, just so basically what we're saying is that this recommendation has been deferred.
No, we're altering it, because when it came out, things have moved on since then with suggestions to what we could do, and we found out that we won't get the stone in time for this year. So it's just to amend the current recommendation.
So maybe you could just clarify what is it now that we are recommending?
That you're asking for the full council to recommend.
Right, Paul, do you want to do this?
Yeah, I think what's been suggested is that we don't have the stone for the current year. It's potentially something that we will look at for 2022, and that in the meantime that there's to look at the cost of a plaque to be placed at the Ostream Centre, and then to have a brass band or a small group as Rob mentioned, which could sort of march up to the Ostream just to recognise the day. Again, there's no cost at the moment, so
well, there will be with a brass group, you know.
No costs are available at the moment. So I think it's something that if we're following along the lines of which way things have gone in previous items, which I very much support, I think it's I guess it should be referred back to the committee and then come back next month with the costs.
Yeah. So
that makes sense.
What we're asking for then is for us to support this in principle, but then to go back to the relevant committee and then to come back here with costs for the plaque, the band, and, well, not so much the stone at the moment, because that's going to be for another year. Pam, did you want to say something?
I was picked up when someone said a memorial. Like the end of the war is the end of the war. When's the end of COVID? If you're going to say how many people in the Mumbles area have lost their lives, will you be missing out people? But as you said, the stone is now going to be at least a year away. It's such a lovely idea.
I mean, the memorial maybe is the wrong word, and it's a memorial commemorating NHS Day and all the frontline workers.
Yeah.
And everybody who's lost their life during the COVID pandemic. It's not saying where that started or ended.
Okay, thank you.
The only thing I would question Martin and Paul is this date is next month, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
no, it's the 5th of July. 5th of July. So you've got a little bit of time left, yeah.
No, there we, okay, we'll refer it back then because we've got time to sort it before then.
But in relation to Pam's point, this is something that Steve has already brought up, to be honest, and I think it's a very valid point. Yes, we don't know when the end of COVID is going to be. You know, pandemics in the past have gone on for things like 5 years, to be honest. I know this is a terrible thing to say, but that's what history teaches us. But at the same time, I think, you know, if we do something like this, we won't say the pandemic between we will say, you know, people who, you know, lost their lives in the pandemic and to frontline and social care workers and stuff like that. So, you know, that is a valid point, but it's something that's already been brought up.
Thank you.
Taking this forward, so
we refer back.
We refer back, as I sort of said, but you know, we sort of say in principle, yes, we're interested in taking this forward. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so if we go on to point 9, questions for the chair of the Cultural and Tourism and Wellbeing Committee. Any questions for Rob?
Carrie?
Yes, I have a couple of questions. First of all, it's to do with the intern, which seems to have sort of disappeared down a black hole, and I'm slightly confused as to quite how it's sort of been organised. Full council agreed that people who were interested in participating in the selection process or whatever to pass their names to the clerk, which I did. I've then been told that Cultural and Tourism Committee have decided, without referring back to full council, who they want to have involved in that process. Surely that needs to come back to full council because it was full council who made that recommendation in the first place.
No, I don't think it needs to come back. I mean, Paul, I'll ask his advice in a moment. I mean, we were hoping to interview today. But the person who was going to be interviewed was ill, so we've put it back a week. I mean, the fact is that this intern is primarily working with the Cultural and Tourism Committee, and therefore it makes sense for both Paul and Claire as our officers who work with that committee and me as chair of that committee to be the panel.
I think you'll find that full council also agreed that at the same time that this intern should also take the opportunity to undertake some initial questions regarding the potential for an e-cargo bike, which obviously is an environmental. And that was why the suggestion was that this should involve both environmental and culture and tourism, so that we have something that actually we know is going to meet both those needs.
Well, actually what it is we're allowing you to tag on a couple of questions because, as I say, this is predominantly a cultural and tourism committee thing, that they've got a hell of a lot of work to do with what we've got for them as well. So we've allowed them to tag on some questions with the environmental committee to it, and also one from economic as well about the widening of the pavement or potential widening of the pavement as well.
So I think it's slightly misrepresenting to say you have allowed. Full council actually recommended that. So it's not actually for then tourism and culture to say, well, we've decided we're going to ignore what full council requested and we're going to just do our own thing. So I think you just need to be careful.
We're not ignoring it because we are putting up to 3 questions, short questions from the environmental one there.
I think it started at 4 questions.
No, it didn't. It's 3. And
well, that perhaps should have been fed back to environmental committee so that they knew.
Okay, Sarah, did you want to come in here?
Yeah, this is a bit too important to just end up as something that's the tail end of the community. It needs to be, I think, taken back to environmental, and we'll handle it, Carrie.
No, not at all.
This doesn't seem to be
we'll just
very
do our own.
Excuse me, one at a time, please, for a start.
I mean, look, if you want to do your own, you're quite welcome to do it. I thought you had applied for an intern yourself, but were unsuccessful.
No,
no, we didn't.
All right. Well, why don't you apply for your own?
Who gave you that information?
I thought I'd heard it off somebody, but I'm obviously wrong. Sorry.
You're completely wrong. We made the point that we felt it was better for businesses only to be contacted once.
Please, I will ask questions on the end of ours, or you're quite happy, or you can quite happily do your own intern if you want, but let me know.
Okay, Richard, and then I think we need to move on from this because we're just going around in circles.
Yeah. Regarding these questionnaires, I think as a council, because there are crossovers, it would be better to put, and we'd probably get a better response if we put out one questionnaire as opposed to two separate ones.
Yeah.
There's a risk of duplication of effort.
Mm.
Paul, do you want to come in?
That was the plan.
Paul, did you want to come in? Was there anything you want to say?
The thing I would say, I'd have to check, but I thought the recommendation was that the interviews would be myself, Claire, and one councillor. I'm not certain how that one councillor was going to be decided, but I think Culture and Tourism made the decision, or made the I don't know, it was a recommendation, made the decision that it would be Rob as the councillor. I think Claire has checked with the university, and I don't think there are any internships available now. I think they've actually been issued, so I don't think there is anyone available to do the additional work that environmental would like. But I thought that the outcome was, or the decision of moving forward was that the intern from Culture and Tourism would ask the 3 or 4 questions from environmental, and then a volunteer identified by Maddie at the time, although obviously not now going forward, would be the ones who would follow that up to provide the information required by environmental.
Okay, right. Carrie, I'll ask you to come in, but please can you make it concentrate on how we can move this forward?
Yeah, I'm saying, so that's absolutely fine, but I think it's only right that Environmental Committee actually have sight of the questionnaire that is going to be distributed to ensure that, you know, as Sarah rightly said, this is not something that's just tagged on the bottom, but is actually an integral part of the questionnaire and follows on logically with what else is in it.
Okay then. So if we can ask that the questionnaire that is going to be used can be drawn up, and then that can be circulated to the Environmental Committee for observation and comment. Is that all right?
Yeah, I think probably to economic as well, because apparently there's a question for economic as well.
Well, okay. We know, and Ian, are you happy for the question to be, as we discussed in economic, to find out from the people on the left-hand side of the bottom of Newton Road going up whether or not they want the pavement widened and their thoughts on it? Are you happy with that?
Yeah. You're on mute, Ian. You're on mute, Ian.
Yes, firstly, I think we need to start making some progress here. Yes. I'm more than happy for anything to be put forward to economic and in connection with the pavement. I have been asking some of the small businesses about it, and they didn't seem to be in favour of it, but we have to go through a process of consultation. And if the internment person is going to be doing that, well, okay, fine.
Thank you, Ian.
Okay, thank you for that. Will, can you just come in? But I am keen to move on now.
Yeah. Rob, what section of Newton Road are you talking about?
It's the White Rose going up to Tesco's.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, okay. Nice.
Taking away the parking bays and putting a pavement over it.
Okay. So we will have the questionnaire drawn up, a draft of the questionnaire drawn up. That will be circulated to both the chair.
Hang on. Point of order, Martin. This was a question from Carrie to me as chair of culture. This isn't a recommendation from the Environmental Committee. This is a question she's asked me.
Well, I'm just thinking of how we can move on from there is, would you be happy then to draw up the questionnaire and circulate that then to the chair of Environmental and Economic for observation and comment?
Yes.
No, hang on. This is my question, Pam. I'm thinking.
Sorry, mate. Sorry.
Oh, I know, because at the end of the day, this intern is here to serve and do a specific job with the businesses of creating a database that we can use and to promote business and tourism within the area. They have a massive task to do with that, with uploading out of office hours, taking pictures. There's a hell of a lot to do. What we've agreed to do is allow some questions to go on the end, but this cannot take up the majority of this intern's thing. It'd be a couple of yes/no questions.
Yeah, but that isn't what's being asked in all fairness, Rob.
No.
All that's being asked is for the questionnaire to be drawn up. You will be drawing up the questionnaire. The questions which have been mentioned, I think, previously in a previous meeting, will be put onto that questionnaire, and then that will be circulated to the chair of environmental and economic for their comment observations. So, you know,
okay.
you're not...
Okay.
That's all that's being asked. And as I sort of said, it does appear this has been discussed before.
Yeah.
But I think that's a way forward for us, okay?
Okay.
Right off. So that's the way forward. Any other questions for...
Sorry, I'm afraid I have one more as well, which just, I was reminded as I went down Mumbles Road past Black Pill the other day that our banner stand obviously is still being unused. Where are we with the retrospective planning for that?
To be honest, I don't know if Steve.
Yeah, it's with me to do. I've put the planning permission request in during the drawing as best I can. Planning in Swansea have sent it back saying they want a more accurate positioning, and I've been trying to get local firms to do that. I've brought this up at various committees. Maddie has found someone who may be able to do it, and hopefully that will be done in the next couple of days.
Okay, Gareth?
This seems an absolute farce. I mean, City and County Swansea commissioned it, they built it, they installed it, they chose the site for it, and now surely they should agree the planning before us having to go back with retrospective planning.
They didn't.
Now they wanted better drawings for it. I mean, it's just a joke, really. The whole thing is really.
Hang on, Gareth. They didn't choose it, and they didn't commission it. We commissioned it.
Or yeah, sorry, Rob. We commissioned. They installed it and proposed site. So City and County should have been aware that it needed planning permission. We paid them to install it. So
yeah, we paid them to build it and install it, and they actually agreed where it should be put.
This is the Linda Tyler Lloyd issue. She should be charging up off to this on behalf of the MCC.
Mm.
Okay, well, can we maybe raise this with Linda and definitely with City and County and find out if there is any way of resolving the situation?
Well, we've been told we have to have planning, Chair.
Yeah.
The application in. It's not my fault that did such a small piece of work that draftsmen and architect firms don't want it. I've tried about 3 or 4 now. Hopefully, the one that Maddie's found that did some work for her on Smugs will be able to do that for us.
Okay, well, I'm just looking for a way forward out of the situation that we find ourselves in.
Yeah, to a way forward. Surely,
yes,
surely the City and County of Swansea must have the design of the actual thing that they installed. So all we got to do is ask them for the design of the actual banner stand that they made for us.
Is it not possible to take a photograph which shows exactly where it's located?
They want a plan to a certain scale. I've done it as best I can by looking where it is and
right,
so on.
okay.
But I haven't got the technical expertise to do it.
Steve, as a point of interest, could you send me the email and what they're asking for, and I'll see if I can expedite it in any way. Get some
great.
From that.
Thank you for that, Gareth.
Thanks, Gareth.
Much appreciated.
Yeah, much appreciated.
Okay, so any more questions for the Chair of Cultural and Tourism? No, if that's the case, we'll move on to point 10. You're looking otherworldly as it is, Rob. Point 10, recommendations by the Community and Social Wellbeing Committee. The main one there, first one, I mean, sorry, West Cross Green Play Equipment. And it's got underneath, assuming full plans are available for full council. I've seen the report, but I'll pass it over to Rebecca anyway.
Okay, thanks. So when this was discussed at Community and Social Wellbeing Committee, I was under the impression that plans were in the process of being drawn up at city and county level. And that's a misunderstanding on my part. So as I've put in my written report, what was being drawn up was the essential, what's going to be considered the essential items in the procurement process. Following our consultation and the zip wire being the most popular of all of the play equipment options that were considered, and there was plenty of space for people to give their own ideas as well, the zip wire will be included as an essential item in the procurement process. And then what will happen is tenders will be requested to give the design, location, etc., of exactly what it is that each supplier is offering. So we won't have access to plans until that process has gone forward. And in order for that process to go forward, they obviously need to know exactly what the budget is. And that budget includes the up to 20,000 that was agreed to go into the budget by full council back in January. So what we're asking at this stage is that full council approve the amount, again, up to 20,000. And I stress that because if the total cost comes to less than the total pot which is available, which is 56,000, if you include the 36,000 from city and county, then it's back to us really to consider what we do with that any leftover. But what we're asking is that 20,000, we make the commitment to that money being made available, and Swansea Council have assured us that they will come back to us at the tender stage to make sure that the plans do meet all of the things that we've heard through consultations. That includes the essential items, but also the location. We've worked really hard to make sure that the location is not going to interfere too much with any residents, and that it's appropriate in terms of road safety, etc. So that's the slight change of information that I've got.
Okay, thank you for that, Rebecca. Will?
Just a quick question. I remember in the last committee meeting, I mentioned that I can't relax as a parent in a play area unless there's a fence around the play area, and it is fairly close to a main road, as you know. So just wondering if that conversation had progressed and if there was budget for that. I think with a zip wire, you don't need to necessarily have a zip wire fenced in, but anything else, if it is aimed at any children under the age of even 6, I think a fence around the play area is needed, and unless that is part of the proposal, I personally will abstain on it because I don't think it would be a safe place to put a playground otherwise.
Yeah, thanks for the question. So we are taking advice from City and County, both the play officers and the parks people on this. Sarah's had a fantastic idea that we could perhaps put an organic fence around it in the form of a low-lying hedge. But as you say, Will, because with a zip wire, it probably wouldn't be appropriate to fence in if it was just a zip wire. It will depend really on what the various companies come back with in terms of anything else that they add into the space and where the budget is for fencing / organic fence.
Okay, Sarah.
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
Dear me. I agree that I can't relax if there isn't some sort of barrier between, so a child can't run out into the road, and I think most parents feel that way. I do think a hedge going around, we could add it to our Wales in Bloom thing and get the children planting it from the local schools, but also perhaps a little low fence if the money is allowed, if we can get a little extra money from what's left over. We did talk about that. Yeah, so that would be a good thing. Yeah, we want to put more than a zip wire, so I think that is going to be an essential.
Okay, Steve?
Yeah, Chair, because the plans aren't ready, what is the resolution effectively that you're approving the expenditure in principle subject to seeing the final plans?
Yeah, that's what I had in mind.
Yeah.
Because that will allow Will can vote for that in principle, and then when the plans come, if he's happy with it or not, for example.
That's what I mean, and we can't really vote if we haven't seen the plans. Well,
so just on that, Steve. Sorry, Martin, I didn't mean to cut across you then. On that, you know, there's obviously no budget for a fence in here. A hedge isn't going to be adequate, sweetheart. A hedge isn't going to be adequate because although it's a nice idea, but in reality, people will cut through it. So I wouldn't support that, I'm afraid.
Okay, Ian?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I would just like to say that when this was first raised, I did highlight the fact that this play area wasn't going to be fenced in. And now I find it still isn't going to be fenced in. However, you're now talking about some sort of hedging. Well, is this going to be stock-proof hedging? Is that going to keep the dogs out? Because it's not only helping to protect the children, it's also to try and keep the dogs out of the actual play area. I just can't understand what's going on here. And I haven't got the OneDrive, so are there plans available of the type of equipment that's going into this play area?
Well,
and how this £20,000 is going to be spent? I've been listening for a considerable period of time this evening, and everyone was querying about costings, but there doesn't seem to be, we just want £20,000, and it's going to cost £56,000. I would like a bit more information, please.
Okay, and I take on board your point. This point about the plans not being available has already been made. Pam?
I think you said earlier on that we will be taking the advice of Swansea City Council play area planners, and they've got the experts. We will follow their advice. And I'd like to see any child get to a hawthorn hedge. You just won't do it if that's what you want there. But we're taking advice from the City of Swansea. They're not going to allow us to contribute or build anything that isn't going to be absolutely safe, health and safety safe, and perfectly legitimate for any child that wants to go there. They just won't allow it to be built in the first place. So we have to see the plans and go with their advice. And we would be guided and guarded by them.
Okay, thank you, Pam. Sarah?
Yes, I take Ian's point. That's one of my other queries about having open plan parks is dog fouling, which is just disgusting and you can't have it. But as Pam said, you put the right hedging in and it will be quite difficult for dogs to get through. And in the meantime, you can always put some sort of makeshift stuff around along with it until the hedge is strong enough. And it will be a good project. And I don't think Swansea Council will allow us to do it unless it's safe. We can't have too high a hedge because, of course, then you have the concerns about what's going on behind the hedge. You need to be able to see the children as well. It's striking the right balance. It's the case with all our parks.
Oh, okay, then we're moving this forward and taking on board the point that Steve made earlier on, is we haven't got the plans at the moment, particularly if we're talking about the hedges, whether it be organic hedge or any other type of hedge. We're talking in the realms of hypotheticals at the moment. So if we go forward on the understanding, because we've already made that recommendation, that we go forward with the idea of supporting this in principle, but of course we can't support the full proposal until we see the plans and have the opportunity to see what exactly is being proposed. And at that point, we will come back and consider it as a council. Are we happy to go forward on that basis? Rebecca?
Yeah, I just want to be a bit careful about the wording because obviously we need to be straight with City and County about what our commitment is in order to inform the procurement process. So if we could say, I was going to suggest an amendment you know, support release of up to £20,000 in principle, subject to involvement and consultation as part of the procurement process in the sort of consultation on the plans as part of the procurement process.
Sounds solid.
So, Chair, that's diluting it a lot, isn't it?
Yes.
We had subject to the site of the final plans where you make that decision.
Yeah.
I'm asking you.
I don't think it's about consultation. We already take part in the consultation. It is the thing about what the council is going to okay in the final plans. And I really don't think that the council could possibly be asked to okay the final plans until they actually see what those final plans are. And as part of that, as a number of councillors have raised, fencing is going to be a key consideration.
Sorry, I think we're talking at cross purposes because I think that's what I'm suggesting. My wording was about making sure that Mumbles Community Council are involved in the procurement process. Okay. So we would be involved in the decision on the final plans.
Yeah, so it'll be Mumbles Community Council being involved in that consultation.
Yeah, sorry, did that sound like I wanted it to be me personally? No, I'm thinking of
Mumbles. No, not you personally, but I just thought the community or what have you, because ultimately
the council.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chair, can I just come in on this? I understand what Rebecca's trying to say, but that is still the decision. At the moment, you haven't got enough information to make a decision. I think you've agreed that. When are you going to make a decision? What Rebecca, my understanding of what Rebecca is saying is, we say yes as long as you consult us. But that's not, I thought you would want as a council to look at some plans and say yes or no to it as a council.
Yeah, I think that's what.
And what I don't understand is why this wouldn't be sufficient for Swansea Council to go ahead. If we're going to be working together with them in partnership, they've got to give some sort of credence that you know, we're not going to renege on agreements, you know, without a good reason.
Is there any danger that this project will fail because we don't commit the up to 20,000 up front?
Yes.
If there's any danger that it will fail if we don't commit the 20,000 to the 20,000 up front, then we have to do that.
Okay, Sarah and then Carrie.
Yes, that was a concern. They don't want to be left hanging and start committing 50,000 or whatever to a park and then us step back and go, oh, we're not adding to that. We're not giving out 20,000 because we've decided against it. They want something for us to say that we are going to be committed. That's all.
Carrie?
Yeah, it seems a bit sort of chicken and egg here. You're asking to see the plans before you commit to £20,000, but unless they know that there's £20,000 available, they're not going to be able to draw up the plans because they won't know how much money they've got. Yep. You know, we've got to be realistic here. And why can't we just say we agree in principle that we will commit £20,000 to this project, subject to final approval of the plans?
Well, that's exactly.
Is that really that difficult?
That's what we are saying.
Best thing, Carrie.
Well, that's not how it came out. It was all about, we're in principle and subject to this. Let's just say, we will commit £20,000 to this project unless there is something drastically wrong with the plans when we see them I don't know what.
What we're saying. Okay, Carrie, Will?
It's not hard to come up with play scheme plans at all. They do it as part of quotes all the time. So I'm sure if you could get this done fairly quickly. For me, I've obviously said I wouldn't vote for it because it hasn't got a fence around it. But the other alternative is that if you guys want to push this forward, you just do it as a grant, right? And just say that you'll just do it no matter what. And I think if you all want to support that, then you just do it as a £20,000 grant.
What?
Okay, what? Rebecca.
Okay, so I don't want us to spend all evening talking about this.
No.
I just want to give a bit more context, which is that this is one play scheme of however many wards there are, because as Will well knows, this is a CCS Swansea-wide play programme. So the reason they're not doing individual plans for each project is that it's that the procurement is huge. This is one small part of it. And on that note, the Swansea Council officer who is overseeing it, is running sort of a meet the buyer event as part of the procurement, and really wants to make sure that she's got a good grip on the procurement so that we get best value, we get really excellent products and a really excellent final result. Carrie's exactly right in terms of how she's framed it. I am just wanting to ensure that we have given as much of a commitment as we can so that we cannot unreasonably withdraw that commitment, because if we do, essentially what we are doing is completely changing the parameters of this project, and the procurement process would effectively have to start again, because we would be withdrawing 40% of the funding. So that's my concern, which is why I wanted to say, subject to MCC's involvement in the procurement process, which would give us that opportunity to voice our views on the plans. As Steve says, it's a partnership. So, that's why I want to make sure that we're clear. It's a partnership. Swansea Council will have their view, they will have their advice, their expertise. We would want to have some involvement in what those plans are about. But I just don't want us to be in a situation where at the last minute we're turning around and saying, no, we're out.
Okay, Sarah. And then,
yeah, I mean, I see this as an incredible opportunity. We could have been coming to the table as we were last year and saying, we want to build a park. It's going to cost us a vast sum of money. They're offering 50,000. They're not going to want to build something that's rubbish or dangerous. They're going to want to build something that's worthwhile. Us, just 20,000, that's a bargain towards a park we need. I mean, let's just be sensible about this. 20,000, drop in the ocean. Think how much Underhill cost us.
Okay, so if we sort of say that we're going to go ahead in this, my own personal feeling on this is, if we're in a position where City and County of Swansea are happy with the safety levels of the park, I think we could personally could back it as a council. But if we go forward on the understanding, I don't know if Steve would like to sort of come in on this, that we could go forward on the understanding that we will go forward on this in a partnership with City and County of Swansea, and we will respond to the final plans when we see them. Is that okay? Mm-hmm. Because I think that's the sort of top commitment that we can give on that.
Can you go over that again? I didn't follow that.
What I'm sort of, we will go forward in partnership with City and County of Swansea in the procurement procedure of the commissioning of the park, and working with them on that. As long as we are part of that process, we are happy to go forward with that.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. Thanks, Martin.
Okay.
Martin, just to... So you can't say what you're voting for tonight, can you? But that's my question to you. If someone said to you tomorrow, tell us about this playground in West Cross that you just spent £20,000 on, what would you be able to say? Is it fenced? Is it not? Has it got a zip wire? What other equipment is it in?
We wouldn't be able to say that at the moment because we haven't got the plans. But what we would be able to say is that we will support the development of the play area based on the recommendations coming from the City and County of Swansea.
Can I just say as well that the other thing we can say is that the zip wire is being included in the procurement as an essential item, and the zip wire is what came through from MCC's consultation as the most important item for people who responded.
Okay, I'm really quite keen to move on from this now because we'll spend all evening on it. So are we happy to proceed on that basis then?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Are you doing a vote there? Because I'm still so confused. I don't know what. I think you need to call a vote because I'm going to clue what has happened.
We'll call a vote. That we will be happy to support this project going forward on the basis of working in partnership with the City and County of Swansea and their procurement procedure in commissioning this park at West Cross.
Okay.
All those in favour? Okay, I think it's carried. Ian, did you want to say something? Sorry.
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question, and it was in connection with the maintenance of this park. You know, who's going to be paying for that? So you're asking for 20,000.
We've had the vote,
and that just seems to be, you know, oh well, it's only 20,000. You've got a park in Yalton. You've got a park in Fairwood Road.
Yeah, we've
got
had
a park in High Mead.
Can you be quiet?
And now you want another one. The other three aren't being maintained. So how long is this one going to last?
Okay, Rebecca.
Okay. You've asked this question before, Ian, and I've answered it before. City and County of Swansea will be taking on the maintenance cost of this park in completeness. And I appreciate you've not had access to OneDrive, but in my report, I have said that there were issues raised with both High Mead and Fairwood parks in the consultation about this new park, and those issues have been addressed by the city councillors. Repair works have been scheduled and in some places already completed, and the facilities at Yalton were reviewed as part of that process and have been found to be in good condition and well used.
Okay. So I think, honestly, I think we just need to move on from this issue at the moment, and maybe come back to it at a later point when we have got more complete plans. So if we go on to, hopefully, which I'm thinking might be a bit less of a controversial item, grant request for book exchange scheme. This was for £150 towards the scheme. I don't know if you've seen the book exchange, which has gone outside the Ostream Centre, being run by volunteers. Seems to be quite well received on social media. So can I just put this to the vote, or if there's anybody got any questions? Rob Marshall?
I'm going to abstain because I couldn't find it on OneDrive.
Okay. Steve, this also the thing with OneDrive is if people are having problems accessing OneDrive, which I wasn't really fully aware of, can we not circulate the documentation?
Well, the whole point of going, yes, of course, but it's explore admin, and it seems utterly ludicrous when the modern way is to share via those sort of platforms. Hopefully, when you have the new equipment, there shouldn't be a problem because everything's going to be configured for you to use, and you've got access.
And like, if people can't access OneDrive, can they all access Dropbox or one of the other platforms?
I can access OneDrive, but I couldn't find the folder with additional documents in it.
No, there seemed to be an additional documents folder.
They told me all the folders were empty. I've got SA1 was setting this computer up to do just that, Clark, and it was telling me no folders, nothing here. Yeah. And I was in the right area. I know I was doing things properly.
I'm not disputing, I've had issues before, but I didn't have any problems with the documentation for this one. But, obviously this is an issue because obviously people need access to the documentation. Ian?
Oh, thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you, Chair. Well, obviously I haven't got any detail on the background to this. What is the £150 going to be used for? It says towards the scheme. Does that mean they're going to have another box for the books? How much of an area are they going to take up outside of the Ostream? I noticed this morning that the telephone kiosk at the bottom of Glen Road is now a book swap. So, and that looked pretty grim actually, but how are we going to manage this? They're using the piece of land that we have the responsibility for. What control are we going to have of it?
Well, the whole sort of issue is that the whole £150 is just to pay for hand sanitizer, cleaning, the cupboard that the books are going to be kept in to keep the books safe and dry. The book exchange itself is going to be run by a local woman whose name escapes me at the top at the moment, but she will be running the book exchange, and she is part of a wider book club that is based in Mumbles, and they will be using the books that they use as part of their book clubs to circulate the books and issues like that. When it comes to maintenance of it, that will all be managed by them, to be honest. But this is just a one-off payment to pay for the box and the wipes and keeping it clean. As you sort of said, I also saw the one at the bottom of Glen Road, which is very grim, to be honest. And one of the things that I had in discussion with the woman concerned is that it would be kept in a lot better condition than that. Like,
well, I'd like to think so, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions on that? If not, can I put it to a vote? All those in favour? Okay, so that's passed as well. So if we go on to questions for the chair of the Community and Social Wellbeing Committee. Pam? Can
you give an update, please, on the meeting that Alan was supposed to be organising for consultation exercises on both Mumbles and Langland, because it's going nowhere at the moment and it seems a very protracted system of doing things, and we're having a lot of correspondence from people who are interested in it and are able to tell them that nothing's been done again. Do you have an update on that, please?
Thanks, Pam. I think the short answer is no, I don't, but others probably do.
Yeah, Rebecca, I spoke to Alan about it yesterday, and he was going to come back with some dates for the reconvene session.
And will that be with people who were involved in the first session, Steve?
Yes, he has emailed everyone who was involved, yeah, and suggested a way forward.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So I suppose I would just clarify as chair, Pam, that I am anticipating that that session is still about the Mumbles tennis courts as the urgent priority. I have said, and I will say in this public meeting, that the findings of that consultation will be invaluable in general in our strategy of providing sports facilities in the area. But I'm not considering it a full consultation on the use of Langland tennis courts. I think that is still open to needing to be more fully investigated, is my view.
Okay,
thank you for that. I was most concerned today to have an email from Alan saying that he was using the Swansea City Council source to say that everybody wanted tennis on Langland, which we know isn't true. And I've sent him the addresses of people to get in touch with. I'm concerned that he hasn't got enough information going into that meeting. So I wondered if we could do some of our own, I don't know, maybe Survey Monkey, so that when he says he's trying to get a meeting together on that at the end of the month, towards the end of the month. Is there time in the interim? It's only the second Tuesday. Could we put out a Survey Monkey so we can take generalized information about what people have come to us with to that meeting? So he seems for him to get a balanced view and to be able to decision on how to go forward with a more balanced view. And I think there is a more balanced view to be had. So can we do our own bit? I've done my own consultations, so other people have had it as well. Can we do a members community council? I don't know how to approach this. Can somebody suggest a way? Can we just do a Survey Monkey like we did on the skate park and have some information from that? That's
exactly what Alan's doing, is consultation on behalf of MCC. That's exactly what he is doing.
But he says,
Thanks a lot. Can I bring Sarah in, please?
Yeah, I think there was some confusion here, because I thought the meeting that we went to was very good. It was very interesting, but it was aimed at Mumbles. And then when it came out, it seemed to be embracing Langland as well. And there was some confusion then with some of the paperwork that came out, which was old, because it was talking to people about wanting a skate park down there, because at the time there wasn't the skate park being built. So I don't think that's it's not a very sensible community-led thing. If it's old, it's just going to irritate people. I've been inundated this weekend with various emails from people who are based in a basketball group who's based in Gower and have a lot of their children in Langland who want to use it as a basketball court, one of the courts. I said, you'll get your chance to talk to the community council and they will listen, because that's what we do. It's no good saying, no, Taff, it's all going to be tennis courts, and not listen to the community. They're the taxpayers at the end of the day.
I don't think we should be listening to groups in Gower or Swansea basketball, for example. You know, this is Mumbles, we're Mumbles Community Council,
yeah,
Gower Community Council.
There was an awful lot of people in the tennis report that we took in who weren't living in Mumbles at all. In fact, there were people from
like the skate park, exactly like the skate park review, yeah?
Okay.
There's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Well, Sarah, can you calm down, please? And I'll bring Pam in and then Rebecca.
I've had people from Langland who live in Langland and live around the tennis courts saying that there are youngsters down there playing football on the courts and saying, for goodness sake, decide what you're going to do, get the gates up, because they playing football around the brand new nets we put up. So I went down there Friday, Saturday, and I counted there were 35 young chaps playing football on all 4 courts, and went in and talked to all of them about what they wanted. My granddaughter was so scared, she ran to my daughter and said, quick, come and rescue Mamgie. And my daughter said, there's no need to rescue anybody. So there are people living in and around Langland who are concerned about the courts and want something done about them. And are saying, look, if they're going to give them a football court, give them a football court. Just save the 2 courts that you have refurbished and keep them pristine for tennis. There are lots of people asking for different things, and there are lots of people down there using them for different things. And I think we need to go out and talk to these people and present that to Alan as a rounded piece of information.
Why do you hate tennis so much, you lot? Why do you hate tennis so much?
Calm down. Right. I'm going to Rebecca now. Bring in Rebecca, but I really think that we're missing the point here of what it is we should be discussing, and I will get onto that now. Rebecca, do you want to make a point?
Yeah, I think it's, if we can just draw a line between the Mumbles tennis consultation and the Langland conversation, it would be really, really helpful. The Mumbles tennis consultation, full council have agreed it's urgent. It sits with my committee. Will made the memorable plea that we light a fire under it in our last committee meeting. And that is, why Steve has been instructed to try and get that meeting together as soon as possible. But it needs to be really discreet in its purpose. And that purpose is the community consultation on Mumbles tennis courts. Yeah. I accept that there will be information from that is useful for our thinking around Langland. But the Langland issue is big and thorny and needs probably its own separate meeting. So that is my suggestion in terms of a way forward, that we actually do treat them separately so that we have opportunity to really properly consider all of the aspects of both sites.
Okay, well, I'll come in on this because I did bring this up at one of the other previous committee meetings, and I've talked to Alan about this, because what I think has happened here, there's been a bit of mission creep that's crept into Alan's consultation, that has become a bit blurred about whether it's between Mumbles and Langland, but really it is all about Mumbles. So this mission creep has crept in. I've asked Alan to regroup the group and to define what people's roles are and what the focus is. Personally, I don't think that there's any point whatsoever in us doing our own consultation, because what is the point of employing Alan and paying him money if he is the one to do the consultation? If he's not doing the consultation in the way maybe that we think is correct, well, then we bring that up with him. But I definitely don't want to duplicate the work that he is doing. Also, I think I've said to you before, I've worked in this field for a good many years. I've come across Alan professionally in the past. I'm not saying the guy is completely utterly faultless. None of us are. We all make mistakes. But at the same time, he is very good at what he does. So I would like to follow his advice and his guidance, because I think that will give us some robustness in our consultation process. Ian?
Yes, thank you, Chair. That does help to clarify the matter. I believe it was on the 15th of December 2020 that Council decided to appoint Alan Thomas to do a consultation on the Oystermouth tennis courts. There was no mention at all of the Langland tennis courts in connection with that. Why and who has been doing this mission creep? We have the chair here that's saying, you know, they should be kept distinct and separate. So I really don't know what's going on here. You know, one person's saying they're having lots of emails in connection with a basketball court from people in Gower in Langland. We're not talking about Langland, are we?
Well, we should be, because, I'm sorry, Chair, because the two good courts that we've paid an arm and a leg for are being misused by tennis players and the nets are going down. We need to move on this and make some decisions. And also, if we're going to refurbish the third court, then let's do it, because we've got another summer coming up and it'll get bashed about, it'll get degraded. Let's decide what we're going to do with it and get on with it. I agree with everything you said, Martin, about Alan and the robustness. It's just the timeline. It's taking him months to get things organised, and it's going to be the end of April, so there'll be no decision in May, and then it's going to be the end of May. You know, we should be getting these things sorted out, and we should be protecting the investment that we've already made in these courts and deciding what we're going to do with the others. And when are we going to talk about that?
Okay, I'll bring Sarah in and then Ian, and then hopefully we can move on again.
Yeah, just to follow on with what Pam said, it's such a crying waste when you've got people, and I'm sorry, most of these kids are from Mumbles. I know I've been asked by the kids at Llanderw, can we have a basketball court? I've been asked by mums who play netball, can we have a netball court? At the moment, the mums have to go all the way down to Bishopston gym to play, and of course they can't at the moment. We rushed to get Underhill done simply because of the pandemic and the need for decent outside spaces. I think kids that play basketball in our area deserve to have a court. It's not much to ask. Okay. We spend a fortune on football and tennis.
Ian?
Right, thank you, Chair. Well, I'm very pleased to hear Councillor Erasmus supporting money being spent at Langland. You know, we started the Langland project back in 2017. We've encountered no end of problems, not only with existing councillors on MCC, but also with the City and County of Swansea. You know, we've been led a merry dance, and we're still being led a merry dance. We're led a merry dance with the Oystermouth tennis courts by City and County of Swansea. But, you know, there is no mention coming from Councillor Erasmus about what to do with the Oystermouth tennis courts and how that's going to be paid for. Why don't we put a basketball hoop in West Cross play area instead of a zip wire, you know, if it's so popular? You know, I don't know where we're going here. We're just going round in circles.
Making my point for me here, where we are talking about it. We're just not talking about it and getting a plan together. You're making my point for me.
Okay, well.
Right, just picking up a few points, Chair. I'm sure we can move on then. There's, when it comes to what we're going to do with our two courts, gate system from the LTA, Steve is already in the process of sorting that meeting out, right? That's quite easy. We put a gate system in. We don't have to charge. It doesn't have to be a charge thing. It could just be when people book. I was down there on the weekend. There's people queuing up to play tennis. That's right. All 4 courts were taken, and there was 3 families queuing to play tennis, right? That was both days, all right? So the tennis courts are well used, okay? There is so many other places that you could put a mugger. I don't know if people actually know what a mugger is, by the way, because you can't fit 30 to 40 people on one mugger, which is what email which I've just had from one of you. This really is just like an anti-tennis lobby. I just stop talking, Pam. No one talks to you.
Please, let Will talk.
This is an anti-tennis like lobby. And it's just absolutely obsessive, right? We've got a place where we can put a basketball net. We've got Underhill. I've had an agreement from the council. I've had an agreement for the rugby club. And for some reason, no one wants it there. Surprise, surprise. They want to force it down Langland, where there's perfectly good tennis courts, the only place in our whole ward where we'll be able to have tennis courts. Okay? If you lot stood up to Swansea Council, we could have coordinated something and said, right, what development's going on that double tennis court? There's plenty of room there for a big development and a mugger and a basketball club. It's a huge site, that double tennis court and toilet block. But no one wants to stand up to Swansea Council, right? Oh, you've done it again. Okay, that's rude. But that's a plenty big enough site. Swansea Council can still fit a mugger, a basketball court, and whatever they want to develop on that.
Okay, Sarah, I'll bring you in, but
I'll keep it short. The answer about Underhill is the problems with crime in Underhill. We had that glass, people putting glass on the
you know, sorry.
It's dangerous. The last thing we need is to put either a skate park or anything like a basketball court up there, because people will neatly forget that there's always been crime in Underhill, and they will blame then the basketball players or the skateboarders. So it's better. It's not the ideal place to put somewhere like something like that. And you must admit, well, you see it on social media all the time. It's always Underhill.
No, you don't realise how many calls I get. Do you know how many times the police are down Langland?
Okay, look,
I'll get the reports to you.
I'm going to bring Richard in now because Richard hasn't spoken, but I'm going to move things on because, you know, we're just going to go around in circles, and this is how we do not come to decisions.
Absolutely.
Let's be honest, I don't honestly think we do have a cohort of people against tennis, as I don't honestly think we've got a cohort against the skate park. But we can all argue one way or the other. We have, of late, last year or so, become a community council that gets things done. Let's stop the bickering and carry on getting things done, please.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Richard. And second that. Okay, so to bring this to an end now, we were talking about going back. I can't even remember what we were talking about going back so far now. We were talking about the consultation that Alan has been involved in. So if we go back, Alan, as I sort of said, I've had a word with Alan that I was concerned, and some of the rest of us are concerned as well about this mission creep. The consultation is about the courts in Oystermouth. It is not about anything else. So we will go back with that, and we will work with Alan to make sure that that consultation is as robust as possible, and then we will work forward. We will work forward from there. I think that's all that we can do at this particular point of view. If you don't like what comes out of the consultation, or you think the consultation is flawed in some way, then we need to address that at that particular point. But that, I think, is the way forward for now. Are we all happy with that? Well, I don't know if we're all going to be happy, but is this a way forward? Okay?
Yes, 100%.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, going forward then, recommendations to Joint Enabling Committee, Environment Policy. Paul, do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, go on, Paul. You want to explain it better than me.
Thanks, Gareth. A budget is just a budget. It's a list of income and expenditures. Well, by the time it comes live, which is the 1st of April, it's at least 2 months out of date. So what you're always going to have is situations where either the budget's not enough, or something will occur in the financial year where the council needs to spend money, and you have to identify where that money comes from. So that's what budget environment is transferring budget around between different budgets which are already agreed. And the only body that can do that is the council under financial regulations. So what this policy does is to identify the process for budget environment. There is a second sort of motive behind it, which has sort of come up already in today's meeting, and that's identifying that every expenditure that's agreed by committees and recommended to council should have a budget, and it should have an amount identified. So it should say exactly where that budget is coming from. I think I was going to use the example of the book exchange. It's been agreed £150 will go towards the book exchange. It doesn't say what budget is coming from. I know what budget is coming from. You as councillors know what budget is coming from. But any external person looking at the minutes and seeing what was decided, they haven't got a clue where that budget's coming from. So I think it's important that the minutes do actually say and it's identified. So I think that's one of the main purposes of this this policy. And the other purpose then is to identify, if fireman is required, what the process is for identifying it. And I think there's 4 stages. I think if a committee is deciding that it needs to do some budget environment, the first decision, or the first area it should look from, is a budget where there's a known underspend within that committee's area of responsibility. After that, then the next stage should be a known underspend in another committee's area of responsibility, although that would have to be with the agreement of the chair and the other committee. If that doesn't find the amount that's required, the third stage is contingency. There's a 10% contingency in the budget, and that's available for use for environment. And then the final, and I think it should never come to this, is the environment from earmarked reserves or general reserves. So that's the process which I think each committee should go through if it needs to identify environment is required. So that the committee then can make a recommendation to council. It clearly identifies what the additional spending is for, what the amount is, and where it is to be transferred from, where it's to be wired from. As I say, I think that it's 2 parts to this, and I think the main part is identifying exactly which budget and which amount and what the amount is for every decision that's made by committee and by council.
Okay, thank you for that, Paul. It was a very comprehensive description of the environment policy. Anybody got any particular questions on that? I do think Paul covered everything.
Go to the vote, Mark.
Yeah, okay, yeah, straight to the vote on that. That's a good suggestion. All in favour? Okay, so that's adopted. Environment policy, right, that's done. Consular remuneration policy, this again was the, we did have a bit of an issue here because we've got a few more committees than we've got pockets for remuneration. But anyway, the recommendation is that this year only payments are made to the chairs of the following committees: community, social wellbeing, cultural and tourism, economic wellbeing and environmental. So not JEC. This was agreed with the JEC.
And the premises. Don't forget the premises. That takes it rounds it up to 5 instead of 6.
Premises, sorry. Yeah. Well spotted, sorry.
That needs to be amended.
It's not on there, is it?
No, it's not written in.
Yes, it is. Premises is in there as well.
Yes, it is.
The 5 are in there.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yes, it's right on the end. Sorry, you're right.
Okay. Right. Oh, so can I move that straight to the vote then if there's any?
No, sorry, I'm voting.
Oh, you voted. All those in favour? Yeah. Okay, let's get through that.
Hooray.
Recommendation environmental questions for the chair of the Joint Enabling Committee, sorry.
Move on.
Move. I got 5 questions.
Oh, go on then.
Recommendations for the Environmental Wellbeing Committee, the SMUGS project. Recommended spending on the project be devolved to the SMUGS operational group in conjunction with the RFO, the Responsible Financial Officer. Any questions, queries on this? No. Rob?
Yeah, I take it this is coming out of a earmarked budget that they have.
We have a grant from the Heritage Lottery Fund.
There we are.
Okay.
Answer that.
That's all right. Any other queries, questions?
Nope.
If not, can we move that to the vote then? All those in favour? Okay, then that's gone. Questions to the chair in the Environmental Wellbeing Committee? Okay.
Doing well, Mark. You've got 5 minutes left.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to play on. I don't think I'm going to get this up. Assessment of the salary level of the clerk and RFO. I'll just give you a bit of a background to this. Is that we had...
Sorry, before you start the discussion, could I suggest that in order for councillors to feel that they're not perhaps questioning things which the members of staff involved might consider to be you know, unhelpful that we actually hold this without the members of staff present, particularly as only 2 out of our 4 members of staff are here, and therefore it would actually, you know, be detrimental to the other 2 staff who are not here to actually be involved in this discussion. So I think, you know, perhaps we move this to the end. We have the premises thing first, and then we discuss this at the end, and that we discuss it as councillors rather than something which, as I say, people may feel constrained that it's not appropriate to question something when the members of staff involved are present.
Okay, I take your point on board, Carrie, and I will take that as your concern, but I will listen to Will, because Will, have you got a point of view on this?
Yeah. It's just that I don't think that's relevant, because this is just asking for One Voice Wales's permission for One Voice Wales to do the review, right?
Okay.
Yeah, but there are relevant, pertinent questions.
Carrie, can I respond to this first, please? I was just going to introduce this project, this initiative in the first instance, because I think councillors and staff deserved a bit of background, and this has got nothing to do with any people feeling awkward about anything. If Carrie does feel awkward about maybe discussing something and she wants to do it in a closed session, I'm quite happy to facilitate that in the future, later on in the meeting. But I was just going to say, as an introduction to this section, so that councillors know where we are with this. This has come from a review that was done with Steve in particular, his annual review, and it came out of the discussion there that it's been over 2 years now since the last review of his salary structure and that of the RFO, who wasn't even in position 2 years ago. Since that time, we have got a lot more staff. We've got more staff, and we've got more responsibilities in relation to premises. So that's all that this session is all about. I particularly wanted to put that on the record now, so that nobody is under any false illusions as to what is being discussed or what is being discussed under this heading. If, as I sort of said, Carrie wants to sort of maybe bring up something in a session there that she wouldn't be happy about discussing in front of the staff, I'm happy that we facilitate a more closed session later on. Okay, Carrie, did you want to come in?
Yeah, I'm saying this on behalf of the councillors that are present. It's not a personal observation. It's something that, you know, is actually good employment practice.
In your opinion, I would say.
Well, anyway. I think if you ask any HR department, they would tell you the same.
Okay, well, as I sort of said, you know, I have discussed this with the staff, and I just wanted to make it clear that there is nothing being untoward being discussed here. All that we are discussing is whether we go to a review to One Voice Wales. We're not actually considering doing the review here and now. We are discussing the idea of it going to review, in bearing in mind that the review hasn't been done in over 2 years. Okay. Anybody else got any points of view on this? Will?
Yeah, just on the actual item itself, are we moving on from that initial point?
Well, yeah, as I sort of said, if Carrie wants a conversation afterwards, we can do that. Like anybody else?
I was just confused why we only had Paul and Steve, really, because obviously we got 4 members of staff. I don't see why it shouldn't be like a review on all of the staff the council has, and if not, it's quite easy to add in, I would have thought.
Yeah, Steve, did you want to have an observation on this? Because this was something we did discuss with you.
Yeah, this was effectively following on from a decision you made 2.5 years ago to have, when you reviewed how you wanted to go forward with your staffing. You took the opinion of One Voice Wales, and Paul Egan did a report and said, this is where this community council sits in terms of what it's doing. and so it sits within this sort of general pay grade. Since then, as you know, you've commissioned him to do a review of your committees. When he came back with his interim report for me to make some comments on, I said, oh, lots of change. I spoke to him about it. I said, obviously, since you've based that on what you were doing, we were doing 2.5 years ago, lots has changed since then. And I explained what we were doing, and he said, oh yeah, that's obviously out of date now. So the point is to analyse where we are as a community council and what sort of pay scale Paul and I as clerk and RFO should be. It's slightly different from, I'm not sure whether they would have the skills to do the other employees because they're sort of specialist positions, but we could ask them to.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure why it's not Paul's role, it's not Paul's performance or my performance that you're discussing tonight. It's whether the role itself needs to be upgraded, not me or Paul.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I just think it's every member of staff. You know, we might as well ask them if they don't feel they're qualified to make that you know, that comment, then I'm sure they'll tell us. But I think if we're, you know, reviewing that, we might as well review every position.
Yeah,
but I think that's something that will come out with a discussion with Paul Egan, to be honest. I think in the first instance, as I said, it's a follow-up from what was discussed some 2 years ago. Sarah?
Yeah, it's just for clarification, Chair. Is this about making sure the clerk and everybody is up to scratch with the training or something? Is this what this is about?
No.
It's salaries.
It's salaries.
It's not just salaries. It's your what Paul and I's position on the pay scale, but it's to do with it's looking at the role. He might come and say, you need another assistant clerk. You know, it's look at review the whole council's work, you know, our workload and so on.
Right. It's all part of upgrading the sort of council in as much as, you know, a lot has changed in the past 2.5 years. Carrie?
Yes, I absolutely agree. A lot has changed, but I don't think it's actually possible to do a review of a member of staff in isolation from the other staff whose work actually impacts on that particular member of staff. You know, there are now people who perhaps are picking up some of the work that was previously done by the clerk, but at the same time, there may be additional work now that the clerk is doing by virtue of the fact they are there. We also have project managers for the main projects that we do. And again, that impacts on the work of the clerk and the RFO in terms of the work that those project managers are doing. If Paul Egan doesn't have that information and isn't able to actually include those in this review, then it's not giving a realistic overview of what the Mumbles Community Council staffing as a whole are doing and what recommendations should be made in terms of the responsibilities within it. You know, why don't we just do a proper, if we're going to do a review, let's do it properly and let's make sure it covers everything.
Carrie, can I just say, you know how professional Paul is.
Yes, exactly.
He would include all the salient factors to look at the RFO's position if it was just looking at that, or the clerk's position. I mean, you could also ask him to look at the other roles as well.
Well, yes, and I think we need to then look at a bigger budget, because if he's going to do a proper evaluation of the whole staffing structure, then it would involve more time, and therefore it should be a bigger budget. I would prefer to spend more and get a proper overall review of the whole council staffing structure, including contracted project managers, so we know exactly where we are, what we're at, what his recommendations are in terms of how we go forward, which may include that we need more staff, but he won't be able to do that without having an absolutely clear picture of exactly what our current staff are doing. And in order to do that, he will need to speak to them and interview them and discuss it with them. That will take more time.
Chair, in that case, shall I go back and ask Paul Egan for a quote to make sure his quote includes everything that Carrie's been asking.
Hold on, hold your horses, Steve, on that one. Ian?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to remind councillors that what we've actually got on the agenda, and the proposal is that One Voice Wales be asked to carry out an assessment of the salary level and workload of the clerk and the RFO.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know where Councillor Townsend-Jones is going with this one. You know, it's not on the agenda what you're proposing. So can we deal with the agenda, please, and have a vote on it?
I'm recommending an amendment. That's perfectly legitimate, Councillor Scott.
Okay. I
think Steve's made a very sensible suggestion that he goes back, discusses it with One Voice Wales, and perhaps brings a recommendation forward to next full council for a full staffing review that actually encompasses all of it. And then at that point, we will then be able to say, this is how much it would cost just to do that. This is how much it would cost to do a proper review. And then we can make a decision at that point.
I do think if we're going to do a review, we should do, you know, review on everything, to be fair.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but the point to make in there, Will, is the whole point, and this whole strange concept of a proper review is, I'm just sort of thinking that we are doing a review of the roles and responsibilities of the RFO and the clerk. Now, obviously, within the roles and responsibilities of the RFO and the clerk are the way that they work with the other posts that we've got within Mumbles Community Council. Now, I've worked with Paul Egan in the past, as many of the rest of you have, and as Steve rightfully suggests, he's very professional, he knows his job very well. And I think in the first instance, and going back to the point that Ian has made here, we are discussing what is actually on the agenda, not maybe something different than what's on the agenda. And I think a good first initial stage would be to just contact Paul Egan and to say, look, this is where we are, that things have changed. This is the place with the RFO and the clerk, and follow his advice from there.
I have actually put forward an amendment, and I think you'll find that, you know, it is quite legitimate that I can request that amendment and that councillors can vote on that amendment.
Yeah, nobody's disputing that. Okay.
That is on.
So,
that is
no, but I was just explaining the situation as I saw it as well. Then, so the amendment that you want to put forward, Carrie, is
that we ask One Voice Wales to undertake a full staffing review of all staff working for either as employees or contractors for Mumbles Community Council, and actually then can come up with a recommendation on staffing salary level, structure, and any recommendations that might be needed for additional staff for other roles.
Well, we've already asked them to do a review of our structure, haven't we?
No, this is the staff.
The staff structure.
It's completely different to what we've asked them to do.
I don't think it's completely different. I don't think that's fair, to be honest. I think, you know, what we're asking you is, if you like, the initial stages, and then for Paul Egan to come in from there. Ian?
I think we need to ask Paul Bynon on this as to where the funds are going to come to pay for this, what Carrie's asking for.
Well, where are they going to come for the other one?
Well, we know exactly how much it's costed for. We've actually done the costings for that. Paul, have you got anything you want to add on that?
All I would say is, yeah, the amount is there for the initial proposal, but there's no budget identified. There are areas where I guess it could come from. I think there's an amount in there for evaluation, if there's no plans for what that's going to be used for. But it's to follow the environment policy. So within the start off within the JEC and then move down the list that was just been agreed in the policy.
Okay, then. So shall we move this to a vote? If we vote on the original, on the amendment as put forward by Carrie, all those in favour?
I am.
Okay, I think that's carried then.
Thank you.
Okay, so if we move on to point, we've done it. Pardon?
Sorry, Chair, you need to vote on the substantive motion now. You've got.
We've got to suspend standing orders because we've gone over from 8 o'clock.
Okay, but before that, you need to, on that item, you voted on the amendment.
Oh, sorry.
So you need to vote just formally on the whole thing now as it stands.
So we're voting on the motion with the amendment.
That's correct, yeah.
All those in favour of the motion with the amendment? Say, all those in favour? Okay, that's unanimous, I would say. Okay, so we've suspended standing orders and now we need to go into a closed session. The only thing, we've gone into a closed session, so can you stop recording?
You need to take a formal vote on that, Chair.
Yeah, sorry, are we all in favour of going into a closed session? Yes, okay.